Thanks, Matthew. Welcome, everybody, to Master Naturalists Present The Nature of the Moon. Today's presenter is Amy Martin. Amy is the author of the book Wild DFW, Explore the Amazing Nature of North Texas, which Timber Press will be publishing in summer 2022, and also the book Itchy Business, How to Treat the Poison Ivy and Poison Oak Rash. Amy also profiles parks, preserves, and the people who protect them as North Texas wild columnist for the digital publication Green Source DFW, which is the website greensourcedfw.org. Now, for 12 years, Amy managed a private nature preserve, converting 15 acres of pasture into tallgrass prairie and performing wildlife habitat rehabilitation on the total 75 acres. She currently applies her skills to the Dixon Branch Greenbelt in her East Dallas neighborhood. Amy is on the social media and programs teams for North Texas Master Naturalists and state social media director for Native Prairies Association of Texas. You can find her writings or more of her writings at moonlady.com. Welcome, Amy.
Hey there. Let me get one. Hi there. I'm Amy, and lots of people do call me the Moon Lady, and of course, my website is moonlady.com. As a young kid in a household I just wanted out of, the turn of lunar phases kept me going. You know, even at age 10, I understood how the moon was always changing, sometimes even disappearing, yet was always there. It helped me understand two things. This too shall pass, and we are forever reborn. I've never let go of that. And my lunar philosophies continue to deepen. And with college astronomy classes, my moon knowledge broadened. 2 decades of presenting seasonal and full moon celebrations led me to lunar lore and legends. Naturalist research has informed me just how much of nature is guided by the moon. I am a well-rounded lunatic. Moonlight is the silver thread that binds all cultures. So many artists and writers are besotted by the moon. Its phases tie us to celestial rhythms, especially women, whose menstrual cycles are the same length as the moon's orbit. Once you become aware at all times of the moon's phase and where it is or is not in the sky, the connection to the universe will change your life. I'll start off today by blowing your minds on the crucial ways that life on Earth owes its existence to the moon. I'll wax eloquent about the new moon and share a video of what it was like to experience a total solar eclipse. After reading my second most popular essay, Moonstruck, we'll take a fun quiz, and then it's on to how lunar phases are created and ways to work with them to enhance our lives. And we'll end by taking a spin through the moon in various cultures. Anytime you want a question, type it into chat, and we'll get to those at the end. But first, my biggest moon peeve. What's wrong with this picture? Type it into chat if you feel like offering your thoughts. But that's right. There cannot be stars visible inside the crescent moon. The sun is our closest star. The sun is a star. And since we can't look through the moon, any star that is shown in that dark area has to be between us and the moon. To depict stars in the dark area of the crescent moon is to think that the moon literally waxes and wanes, melting and reforming like some grand hallucination in the sky. Are we so uncomfortable with darkness that it compels us to intrude light in the shadowy lunar face? This is an improper moon. All right, rant over. So, pop question. Does the moon spin clockwise or counterclockwise? It's counterclockwise, just like the Earth. Oh dear, where'd my notes go? So now we're on to synchrony. You may be wondering, how does life on Earth owe its existence to the moon? In the planet's beginning, The waters, or what was like water, upon the earth were still and dark and deep. The moon zoomed around the earth far faster than today. Then synchrony happened. So, what is synchrony? Two rhythmic patterns in close proximity will link up: pendulums and clocks, crabs waving their claws and mating rituals, minstrel flows of women living together, and my favorite example, drum circles. Millions of years ago, tugged by the Earth's gravitation, the moon began slowing down its mad, dashing orbit around the sun. At the same time, around the Earth. At the same time, the Earth calmed its dizzy spinning, and over eons, they became locked in celestial embrace. Synchrony. Now, for every orbit around the Earth, the moon spins on its axis just one time. So, a day on the moon, one axial spin, is about 28 of our days. That's a very slow spin. This is why you can only see one side of the moon. Watch my right hand slowly rotates, making the palm always face towards me. The far side of the moon was first seen directly by human eyes during the Apollo 8 mission in 1968. And this is it. Different, eh? Far fewer dark mares, which are large basaltic plains formed by ancient volcanic eruptions. Their iron-rich composition is less reflective than the lunar highlands, so they appear dark to us. To astronauts on the moon, they were gray. Us hippies in the 70s saw the dark side of the moon as this, thanks to Pink Floyd. Pop question: are the tides highest at noon or full moons? Correctamundo to those who answered both. Low tides happen at quarter moons. So the moon tugs even when you can't see it on the new moon. That locked in synchrony is what creates tides. The Earth started out rather soupy, lots of hot, sloshy stuff glommed onto a rocky metallic core. The planet was turning itself inside out from volcanic activity. As the planet formed, it was lumpy, with protocontinents pushing through a primordial Genesis sea. Then synchrony happened and tidal patterns became established. The newly formed tides rocked the silent waters, stirring the molecules into combinations. Multi-celled organisms arose. As the tide laps at the protocontinent shores, tidal pools were created, an inter-between world, neither salty nor sweet. Sunlight warmed the tidal pools, fostering more life forms. Eventually, one of them wriggled out into land. Amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals arose, and eventually, globe-trotting humans like you and me. Fun fact: with a diameter of 2,160 miles, the moon fits mostly inside the United States and Canada. Isn't that a fantastic way to get an idea of its size? But even so, the moon is very large for satellite or moon compared to its host planet. It's 1/4 the size of the Earth. No other planet in the solar system has a moon that big relative to its size. Now, a satellite, by most definitions, does not influence its host. Some scientists consider the Earth and Moon to be a two-planet system. All organic life on this planet, the oceans, and possibly the planetary crust itself, are influenced by our moon. We are the solar system's grand duet, a lunar solar love affair. The Earth is just sort of facilitating things like some kind of cosmic wingman. Other planets with tiny moons kind of lurch along. Computer projections show their orbits can be erratic, and their axes might wobble a lot. Magnetic poles can invert, and axial rotation can change speed. All that can cause epic scale weather and environmental disasters. But on Earth, the immensity of the moon keeps us stable. And while we are here today, it allowed humans to evolve, for civilization to develop, and for us to continue to evolve if we're willing. Before we go on to lunar phases, which can seem a little complicated, let's take a fun break with a moon quiz. How many lunations in a year? Oops. Approximately 13 lunar cycles in 12 months. The lunar and solar cycles do not link up, which makes life on Earth wonderfully syncopated. How long does the new moon or full moon last? Depends on if you believe the calendar or what you can or cannot see in the sky. It is 98% dark or 98% illuminated for 3 days. 3 days. Calendar makers are stingy and mark only 1 day. Do full moons occur closest or furthest from the Earth? Furthest is correct. The moon has to be able to be fully illuminated, so it's around 180 degrees away. It is at opposition to the sun. So why can't you see the new moon? It is conjunct to the sun and entirely backlit, as if you stood in front of a lamp with your back to it. Lost to us in the coronal glare, it rises and sets with the sun. In a way, you're looking here at the new moon. Does a solar eclipse can't see the new moon until it pulls away from the sun and starts getting far enough away that it can get a little light on its face. Then it becomes the crescent moon you sometimes see in the western sky after sunset. Does a solar eclipse happen at new moon or full moon? So think about it. There's only one time it can happen. Only at new moon, when the moon is conjunct with the sun. In a solar eclipse, the orbital planes of the moon, earth, and sun line up perfectly so that the small disk of the moon at over 2,000 miles in diameter can cover or nearly cover the sun's massive face at 900,000 miles in diameter and block its mighty light. That's some female superpower there. Are we ready for a total solar eclipse in North Texas? As the shadow of the new moon screams across the continent, from New England to northern Mexico. Midday, people will be on lunch break. It's gonna be insane. Dallas is in the totality path, but the viewing will be longer in Ellis County to the south, which is more in the center of the path. I love new moons. Yes, full moons are showy and make the nighttime a delight, but the underdog new moon has my heart. And that tiny little thing can silence the sun's mighty light. It is the ultimate metaphor for the victory of nonviolent resistance. The total solar eclipses are the only time we can actually see the new moon. That blackness you see when you look at the eclipsed sun is that. A total solar eclipse, though, is more than blocking sunlight. People in the totality path become immersed in the moon's shadow as it races across the earth. For most new moons, its shadow misses the earth and just kind of continues off into space, which is really a trippy thought, is that space is full of all these shadows. So I experienced a total solar eclipse a few years ago with 9,000 other people in the boonies of western Nebraska at Agate Fossil Beds National Monument. Those of us in the know weren't in the wide valley with the mob. We risked rattlesnakes and cactus and climbed to the top of a mesa. Sure, like everyone else, we watched in awe as the new moon crept across the sun's face, wearing eclipse glasses, of course. That as we neared the maximum point of the eclipse, those of us on the plateau top faced the other way. We screamed, laughed, and cried as the shadow of the new moon zoomed towards us at more than 1,000 miles per hour and enveloped us in its darkness. Here's the experience. Here's a video that I hope will play of what that experience was like. You can find my account of this and the video under the name Eclipse Stock at the Green Source DFW website.
Look at that.
Oh my God!
Wasn't that wonderful? I loved that everybody was just laughing, that people broke out in laughter. So, travel half a continent to witness the triumph of the moon. Of course I would. Settle in for the story of the night that I became moonstruck. The night was dark. The cat slipped easily about the blackness in pursuit of phantom prey. As I moved back and forth between the house and garage, the air hung heavy with conspiracy. In quiet anticipation, the cat stilled to a whisper. Then I felt it over my right shoulder, drawing closer. I stood transfixed as a silver light spilled over my neighbor's roofline to the east and watched my own shadow magically appear before me. Setting down my chores, I wandered through the backyard, smelling flowers in the lunar light and dancing with my shadow. They found me later, watching the rising moon weave through the branches of an evergreen. I'd been moonstruck. There are times when the moon calls to me. In the deep of the night, I'll wake to its glow, drifting between the slats of the blinds and watch the cats, handmaidens of the moon, sit upright and stare out the window. And so I'll find myself moonstruck again, my robe wrapped tightly against the chill of an overcast sky, mesmerized by the silver illumination filtering through the clouds. Against this argent glow, a twisted majesty of an oak tree in winter was framed, its branches an effortless design, art from the process of life. My lunacy sated once more, I go inside, slip some mugwort under my pillow, and dream of trees. We are led by the sun and chase our destinies as they set into the western sky. The sun makes life possible. It warms us, causes the plants to grow and the air to stir. But we are ruled by the moon, our emotional tides pulled in its wake along with the sea. The moon holds our wants, capturing in its cool gray face our dreams and desires forever out of reach. It evokes the impossible yearning we feel when we gaze across the ocean, look to the infinite sky, or fall in love. It whispers to us, let go. In its turn of phases, the moon marks the cycles of our lives. As the gibbous moon wanes, it peels off a slice of itself each night until it is a shadow without stars suspended against the cosmos, the old moon cradled in the new moon's arms, visible only by reflected light from Earth. As a waxing moon, it rises with the sun, lost in the brightness of an azure sky, until it swells into Diana's crescent moon. But whatever the phase, the moon is always there. The tides still pull. its enigmatic presence reminding us that there is only change, birth, death, and rebirth. The magic of the moon goes beyond lunar rhythms, for it is timeless. We have been ensnared by the goddess of the moon in all her forms, Ishel, Selene, Artemis, Inanna. She holds her unfailing mirror to our souls for us to contemplate the beauty and the terror of the reflection that we see. Standing over the forever sleeping, forever young poet Endymion, she mourns his soul's unlived dreams, urging us always to yearn for more, to look to our reflection in the sky and ask why. Are you ready to master the lunar phases? I love that rocking motion. The moon is tilted on its axis about half as much as the Earth, so we actually see a little more than half the moon. The lunar phases depend on where the moon is in relation to the sun as the moon orbits the Earth counterclockwise. To us moon watchers on the Earth, it takes about 28 days for the moon to go through its phases. The inner circle shows the moon on its axial spin. The outer circle shows how it looks to us on Earth. Because the Earth spins counterclockwise on its axis, the moon always appears to rise in the east and set in the west, just like the sun. We turn into the sun on this planet, kind of leading with our right shoulder, just like the Sufi spins. Every 24 hours, the moon moves approximately 13 degrees in its 360-degree oval, not like this thing shows, orbit. That makes the moon rise 50 minutes later each day. The new moon rises and sets with the sun. By the full moon, it rises at sunset. The moon continues to rise 50 minutes later each night until it goes full circle and rises with the sun again. If you'll memorize these quarterly rising times, you'll always be able to find the moon. Or cheat and use the date and time website, which I love with all my heart. It's a great site to determine sunset and twilight, moonrise and moonset times for a day, even very far in advance. Month originally meant a complete lunation. The moon is either waxing, that is the first and second quarters starting on the new moon, or it's waning, the third and fourth quarters starting on the full moon. The waxing moon is seen in daytime as well as night. Waning is a nighttime phenomenon. Now that we know the phases and how to find them, let's learn how to live in harmony with them. The lunation begins with the new moon. It's like the tide, bringing in the new and leaving the old simultaneously. The new moon is a power moon. It begins 2 weeks of outward projection. Want to start a good habit, begin a new project, go in a different direction, take a chance, plant seeds, metaphorical and literal? This is your time. The first quarter launches with that emblem of hope, the waxing crescent moon. Couple it with Venus and it's extra gorgeous. When I see it as a slip, we see it as a slip of a moon at first, just a wisp, setting quickly after the sun, following it into the western horizon. Only when the sun is below the horizon and the light is dimmed can this early moon be seen. Yep, if the moon is slim, it's close to the sun. A fun thing to do is try to see that wisp of a moon as it emerges from the new moon phase. You'll need a clear view of the west and be ready right after sunset on the second or third day after the new moon peak. As the waxing moon moves further away from the sun, it gets more illuminated. Still rather close to the sun, it's visible during the day. As each day passes, it gets easier to see because it's bigger. This is prime time for plants, drawing them upward, making stems and leaves flush with fluid. Yep, The crescent moon's arc is always aimed towards the sun, getting illuminated. So the horns of the crescent moon point away from the sun. The first quarter moon arrives, rising at noon. The lunar face is half illuminated, as if you stood in profile to a lamp and only half your face was lit. The upward-outward yearning continues. Socialization is high. Plants consolidate, hasten seed, fruit swells. Such a powerful quarter. Heading towards full, the waxing gibbous moon rises in the afternoon. So when the sun sets, the moon is already well above the horizon. This makes the night surprisingly bright, and it is the best time for moon hikes, that week to 5 days right before the full moon. Wildlife is very active in this time, both nocturnal and diurnal. The full moon rises as the sun sets, a time of balance. Both orbs, the cool and the hot, the emotional and the rational, right at horizon. You can practically hold them in your outstretched hands. Nocturnal wildlife becomes less active in the full moon. There's just too much light. Chinese, Hebrew, Sanskrit, and some other forms of ancient writing are read right to left, quite possibly because of this. The full moon is a time of contemplation, yet the beginning of an inward drawing. Full moons pull us up, help us gain perspective and see beyond the empirical. It is a time to be open to the invitation, to hear the beckoning. The reproduction of many wildlife species coincide with specific lunar phases, especially marine life, and especially on the full moon. The waning gibbous moon asks us to trust. The moon rises in the dark hours. By the fourth quarter phase, you have to be up after midnight to see it. Plants more easily let go of their tenacious hold on life. It's easier to weed and pull up obnoxious plants like privet. The same goes for people. It's easier to die. When the moon is at its new phase, the earth is full. How cool is that? The waning quarters of the moon charge the soil with descending lunar energy, a time to prepare beds, prime period to harvest root crops, perfect for garden chores. The same goes for the personal. Need to clean out a closet, organize and clear out files, let go of a relationship, a habit, a belief. This is the time. This concludes my spiel on living the lunar life. It's worked well for me. It's not all entirely scientific. Take from it what resonates with you. Your last pop quiz. Are you ready? Which religions follow a lunar calendar? Religions of the East and Mideast. Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, all the holy days set on lunar phases. Religions of the earth, paganism, Shintoism, Taoism, and all the indigenous religions. Moon followers, all. But even Christianity is lunar. Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after spring equinox. What ritual objects are associated with the moon? Things that receive and reflect, just as the moon receives and reflects the sun's rays. What human qualities are associated with the moon? Basically, qualities that express your emotions and go beyond logic. And this is where I really love to work with the moon. I am a proud member of the lunatic community, and I invite you to join us to shift from calendar time to moon time. Orient your personal habits around the moon, or at least make time for the moon. Don't get us wrong. We love the sun too, and celebrate all the seasons that arise from the Earth's axial tilt. Halfway between those seasonal dates are cross quarter marks. Each features significant new and full moons that reflect the seasonal flow. These are the moons that cross quarter dates were originally observed on. Beltane, for instance, now is observed on May 1st by most. These are our most ancient holidays and transcend many cultures. It's not, hold on a second, it's not forwarding. Okay. Nothing collects like the moon. When I watch the full moon nearest the spring equinox rise, I feel the energy of Hindus in India celebrating Holi with the colors of flower and nature. You can feel it too. The most important Buddhist date is Vesak, celebrating the birth, life, and ascension of the Buddha. It is observed on a full moon, usually in May. Be still in the moonlight and meditate with millions of others. Connect with others who hope for lunar enlightenment. On the new moon, very close to the autumnal equinox, I feel the prayers of Jews in their temples as they begin the holy days of Rosh Hashanah, a period of introspection and penance. That's a good thing for all of us to do. Rosh Hashanah culminates in the full moon holy day of Sukkot, which praises the nature that sustains us. Jews gather beneath structures made of sticks, just as they did in their 40 years in the desert, and the moonlight sneaks through. A prime time for you too to commune with the moon. That moon often coincides with the harvest moon, when for several days in a row, the moon rises early and the light in the field moves without pause from the warm gold of a fall sunset to the liquid glow of a luminous moon on the horizon. The new moon, halfway between fall equinox and winter solstice, marks the luminous holy day of Diwali and its evoking of ancestors. Millions of people in India and more are outside at night, celebrating with lanterns, lighting the way for their ancestors to come back and visit. The Mesoamerican indigenous observe their ancestors at that moon as well, and we now call it Day of the Dead and put it on the calendar. By the second new moon after winter solstice, we feel the increasing sunlight. The Far East comes alive with the new year, an extended celebration. Each year has an element and an animal to exemplify it. If you can't feel it when half the world is in party mode, you're just not alive. Forest bathing, schmorest bathing, moon bathing is where it's at. The last day of the full moon phase is tonight, so it's time to soak some in. The moon generates no light of its own. Its entire glow is reflected sunlight. Dracula had it wrong. He was never safe when the moon was up. It is a rare light without heat. It never burns like the sun. It is refined and filtered, diffuse and indirect, gentle and inviting, and always elusive, sinking deep into crevices. It is a light that leaves no clear edges, no definition. It's like water. Moonlight is a mystery. Be where you can soak in the moonlight without competing artificial lights. Wear silver and moonstone jewelry. Grab on to some selenite. Drink lots of fluids, but do it consciously, like a tea ceremony. Make it a sensory feast and burn copal and myrrh. If at all possible, immerse yourself into water or float on top. Full moon baths are great. If it's loud around you, use earbuds and put on some instrumental music. Moonlight sings with water. It infuses it with radiance. Moonlight on the water is sublime, twice reflected light. Set out a silver bowl of water and collect moonlight. If it's a rainy full moon, just so perfect. Sit by a pond and watch dragonflies emerge and fly after molting their final larval stage. They only emerge at night. Walk the west bank of a lake. West bank of a lake, yes, and watch the moon rise over the water to the east. Nobody lights up a party like the moon. Take a group moon hike in a public park the second quarter or full moon. Even better, do a group kayak float. Many nature centers offer hikes at night. A June moon celebration has happened annually for over 2 decades at the TMP Hill on White Rock Lake. But better yet, start your own lunatic tradition. So North Texas Master Naturalist and I thank y'all so much for sharing your Saturday morning with us. Gregory Browder of the Dallas Public Library has been a delight as always. So we're going to get on to answer questions that might have come in during chat. I didn't work in why the winter moon is so much brighter and what the lunar standstill cycle is all about. So feel free to ask me about that. And I'll work in more about flora and fauna influenced by the moon in future edition. So I will, excuse me. Oh my goodness. Do I have moon related songs? Well, sorry about this. Of course, Moonshadow with, what was that guy's name? Cat Stevens. I think every moon hike I've ever been on, we break into that song at some point. But people have been sending me moon songs, gosh, for a couple of decades now. And I think I have about 10 pages of lyrics. In the 40s, with the jazz that was out in the 40s, there was tons of moon songs. And some of our early American songs were definitely moon themed because these were people that were agricultural and they were very tied to the moon. I did. Somebody asked, the Earth has a second natural satellite, right? Isn't it a piece of the moon? They are checking that out now. It's been a busy week and I saved that little news piece and I haven't yet read it completely. This has to do with the idea is that the moon might have been something that was created when a huge asteroid hit the molten Earth and flew off a bunch of it. But you know, there's so many theories about it. But I wouldn't doubt that there's chunks of the moon out there flying around at all. I'm so sorry about the cough. Moon, oh my goodness. Moonflower.
While you're catching your breath, I'll mention that Peyton had commented earlier about how beautiful some of your waxing eloquent about the moon. She says, absolutely beautiful. Love how you captured the poetry of our experience of the moon and the deeper spiritual connectedness.
Oh, thank you. That piece has been around for quite some time, and I've had a good opportunity to really polish it and really polish it and get it down. That's so helpful that it's doing that.
Sure. And I see Peyton also has the question about can you speak on moonflower gardens?
Yes. Of course, everybody knows Datura, you know, that big white flower that comes out. One of the, there are a number of flowers like you saw in one of the images, pink evening primrose. There's a whole family of flowers that are basically evening primroses that come out at night. And what's so fascinating about that is that they all have their own moths that there is a special moth, and all it does is deal with pink evening primrose. Datura is very attractive to a whole bunch of sphinx moths. So there are a lot of lunar opportunities for flowers, and most of them are white. There is also a non-native plant called moonflower. Datura is called moonflower, but it's Datura, folks. It's Jimson weed. But there's a vine that is related to morning glories, and it's called moonflower, and it makes big white flowers. It's a European plant, I believe, and it is just so fun. When I had sunlight, I live in a forest right now, but when I had sunlight, I used to grow it. There is also a plant you heard me reference to called mugwort, and mugwort is in the Artemisia family, and Artesia family. I forget. Artemisia, I think. And this is the same family that has wormwood and some other really potent plants. Mugwort is so fascinating because it responds to the moon. You can actually see it respond to the moon. It turns its leaves kind of up a little bit, and you can see the silverness on the underside of the mugwort plant. I just adore it. It is also a European plant, and it's a little hot for it down here. So there is somebody pointed out that Tinker Garden, which is wonderful, is doing their 9th annual lantern walk between December 6th and 12th at dusk to celebrate light and community. Tinkergarden.com. It's great time to get children comfortable at night and comfortable with the moon and help them overcome any fears that they may have. And it's a free event. So Garten.com. The moon as it relates to astrology. Some people really get into the moon when it's in an earth phase, you feel a certain way. And I have tracked it and never found that that really worked for me. But I'm much more attuned to the lunar phases. And but at the same time, each of the full moon and new moons is associated with the sign. And sometimes those moons really reflect really reflect their signs. For instance, the new moon in what would it be? Yes, it would be the new moon in Pisces. The new moon in Pisces is, for instance, very emotional for me. That would be happening in March, and it's the end of the astrological cycle, and it every astrological sign has an element, and it also has a modality. It's either fixed, it's either cardinal, which begins, or fixed, or it's mutable, which dissolves. So Pisces is a mutable water sign. And when the new moon hits that, I don't know what it is, but I really get emotional. And it's very much a time for me to look inside myself and decide what it is I need to let go of. So there are ways to work with the basically the elemental and modalities of the moons in their signs. The Japan Society, 6 to 8 p.m. Plano. It is called Otsukimi. I'm probably mispronouncing it right. And that means moon viewing. And I have been to a couple of those when they used to have them over here at the Dallas Arboretum. And they are tons of fun. Sometimes the viewing of the moon isn't very good. They don't always put themselves in the right location to see the moon very well. For instance, you shouldn't be at the Arboretum. You should be on the other side of the lake to see it. But there's all kinds of fun things that they do, and they serve these really cool little crescent-shaped cookies and cakes, and they're tons of fun. And they drink tea consciously, and there's always somebody there with some telescopes that are set to look at the moon. And the moon is really fascinating through binoculars. I highly recommend that you just get a pair of regular binoculars and look at it sometime. But I'll give you a tip, and that is that about 4 days before the peak full moon phase, so right about at quarter moon, that's the easiest time to see the moon through a telescope or binoculars. You get the most contrast, you get a little bit of shadow, and that helps define the features of the moon, as opposed to the front on illumination of the full moon. There is an observe the moon night. And I think it's already come, but if you go observe the moon night, I think it's in September. Um, it is a lot of fun, and the local astronomical societies always do a big hoo-ha for it. And yeah, it's great. It's great fun. As somebody pointed out that my mom follows the moon to cut her hair. This is really one of those things, yes, that if you want your hair to grow, if you want your plants to like bud out, if you're trimming like a mom and you want to make a lot of more branches, well, by all means, cut on the new moon. If you want to, let's see, what are other things that go with that? I will tell you that there is a German book called Moontime, and they go into this in excruciating detail because they're German and they really like those details. But the German government actually commissioned a study about, been a few decades, about how the moon, what it enhances, what it doesn't enhance, how it affects, with the idea that you could save energy by working with the moon. And I just love it. And that's what that book Moontime is about, is it kind of rips off that German study. Tons of fun. So we are going into the winter, and the winter moon is about, oh gosh, I get my numbers mixed up, but let's just say 10% brighter in the winter. And that's because no orbit is circular. All orbits are elliptical or oval and in some way or the other. So you're either further or closer to the satellite, the thing that you're going around. So there is a perigee and an apogee and a point. And I think anyway, I may be getting my terms mixed up, but there is a close end point and a far end point. Well, around January 6th, we are as close to the sun as we can get in our orbit around the sun, which is interesting that it happens in the middle of the winter. Just goes to show that that's not what causes the changes in the seasons. The changes in the seasons is the axial tilt of the Earth. So the winter moon is really quite bright. And the neat thing about it is that the winter moon is high in the sky. The summer moon, you might notice, is arcs a little lower towards the horizon. And the winter moon is very high in the sky, and it's very bright. And many Native Americans have an opportunity, or many Native Americans have deities, have archetypes that are associated with this winter moon. And in fact, many grandmother figures in Native American traditions are associated with the winter moon. I had a opportunity to go to Ohio, to the Great Octagon, which was a mound builder, an earthworks that was built by the Hopewell people. So that would be around 500 Common Era CE. And we got to watch the full moon rise on the maximum point of the lunar standstill cycle. And it was so magical to see. And we were right there in the area that was associated with, I cannot remember the tribe, but with a grandmother figure called Kukumptha. something like that. And her symbol was a basket, and she would gather the moonlight in her basket and other things too, of course. What's interesting is that one of the primary basket makers in the continent that makes those little woven baskets that have flat slats that are woven, they're actually made there. I tell you, the earth never forgets. It just never forgets. So I think I've spoken up all my time. Just Google lunar standstill cycle. To sum it up, basically, you know, as the sun goes through its cycle, as we go through the cycle going around the sun, at spring equinox and fall equinox, the sun rises exactly due east and west. Well, as we get towards winter solstice, we start tilting, and the sun starts to rise very low in the south. Don't you notice that the sun is in your eyes right now when you drive late in the afternoon? Well, that's why. So it's arcing very low in the sky. And then as you go towards summer solstice, it's very high in the sky, almost as far as far up as it can go. So you might say as far north as it can go. So those are our marks. We have 3 of them. Well, the moon does the same thing, rising and setting its points on the horizon, but it takes its about 18 years to go through that cycle. And the ancient people and Native Americans, the indigenous and Native Americans, they were very well associated and understanding of this lunar standstill cycle. And in fact, it is used as a marker for how sophisticated the culture was. If they understood the lunar standstill cycle, well, they had some mad math skills, seriously. And many, many ancient places like the Octagon in Ohio, but also Chaco Canyon, are aligned to the lunar standstill cycles. That is, their buildings and their structures will line up with the 8 points of the lunar standstill cycle. And I just love that. I just love that. So I think—
Amy, as we wrap up, I just wanted to read a few comments here.
Yes, I see.
So Isabella says, very cool, excellent presentation. Thank you. Benedict, I may not be pronouncing that right. She added a mugwort that you had mentioned, and the spelling of that, Mugwort. Let's see here. Jolynn says, such a beautiful lyrical presentation of a beautiful lyrical topic by a beautiful lyrical person. Thank you. Very nice, Jolynn. And let's see here. Had you responded to Benedict's comment about some farmers and gardeners follow a moon calendar to plants?
I didn't respond to it, but I think we covered it pretty well
Okay.
in the presentation.
Let's see. Temperance also says, thank you so much, Moon Lady. And I do see a question. Will there be access to the recording? And yes, we will be making a recording available on our YouTube playlist here within the next few days. We also, let's see, a couple of other things. Benedict says, in biodynamic agriculture, lunar rhythms are used as a calendar for scheduling farmer operations. Sue Elliott comments or asked, are you aware of Bible prophecy of the shortening of the days?
Nope.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so again, the positive comments keep flowing in. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Amy. We will be putting the presentation out there and on our YouTube playlist. And we want to thank everybody, and we hope to see you at our next Master Naturalist Present talk, which will be on December 18th. And I understand that our topic is going to be on insect mimicry, which will be a really interesting topic.
Oh, it's so good. They're clever. So clever.
Okay, so thank you,
Well,
everybody.
Yes, thank you. I had a great time. I really appreciate it.